Welcome to the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm your host, Danny Gavin, and together with industry leaders and marketing experts, we'll explore the meeting point of mentorship and marketing. We'll discover how these connections have affected careers, marketing strategies, and lives. Now get ready to get human. This episode is brought to you by Audio Academy. Learn to build the career of your dreams in the fun, fulfilling, and lucrative industry of digital marketing without drowning in student loan debt, compromising your values, or working for peanuts. Learn to build your digital marketing career at audioacademy.com/podcast and claim $250 off Audio's Digital Fundamentals career course by entering the code MENTOR at checkout. Check it out at audioacademy.com. That's ODEOacademy.com/podcast and get $250 off with code MENTOR. Hello, I'm Danny Gavin, founder of Optidge, marketing professor and the host of the Digital Marketing Mentor. Today we have Sara Strickland, who is a paid search coordinator at Optidge, who joined the team back in March of 2024. Prior to joining Optidge, Sara worked as a staff NICU nurse and then a travel NICU nurse at several hospitals around the country. Today we're going to talk about career transitions, specifically nursing to digital marketing, which is a big jump, and how beginners can get started in PPC. How are you doing, Sara?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So Sara, let's start off. Where did you go to school and what did you study?
So I went to the University of Texas at Austin, Hookham, and I got a bachelor's of science in nursing.
So was nursing something that you knew you wanted to do early on, like when you were a kid or in high school?
It actually wasn't. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in high school. I was a vet tech forever, and I thought I wanted to be a vet and decided I didn't want to do that. So when I went to college, I kind of just did the basic studies program, and I thought I was going to choose engineering because I've always been really into numbers and math. I love math. But I basically went to one career fair, and after talking to some different booths and whatnot, companies, I decided that was not ultimately going to be for me. I love to talk to people, interact, and not to say that engineering couldn't be that, but I figured it would be a lot of sitting behind a desk with just numbers. So I kind of took a leap of faith and I applied to the nursing program at UT, just knowing that I would like the idea of it. And then if I liked the clinicals, I was just going to fully commit. So I got into it and I loved it. I loved my classes. I loved my clinicals. And then when I was graduating, I applied to a neonatal ICU program in Houston and I got accepted and just kind of, again, trusted the process and went into it and I loved it. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Wow. So knowing you for a pretty long time now, I had no clue that you wanted to go into engineering. And that makes so much sense about where you are today. And I think we'll get to it. Just curious, like other nurses that you've met, do you feel like naturally a lot of them also kind of lean towards numbers or analytics? Or was this, I don't want to use the term fluke. Obviously, that's a very big part of you, but also like your people is a big part of you. So Obviously that pushed you in that direction. But did you see any other like theme there of like, there's some analytical people here?
You know, it's hard to say, but what I will say is that these people are really good at trends, whether it's trends in health, vital signs with their patients. So I guess if you want to relate it that way to numbers, I would say nurses are keenly aware of changes, trends, and that's how we get so good at our job. We get the baseline of a patient or some vital signs or whatever it is, and changes from that, any deviations we're pretty good at finding. So I would say that is more the common trend rather than numbers. I will say a lot of my nursing friends are more into English literature writing than they are math. I wouldn't say a lot of them love math, but it is definitely a huge part of the job, just with medications and whatnot. So, yeah.
Although one of the degrees that if someone says, hey, Danny, I should go to college for digital, and I want to get into digital marketing, what undergrad should I get? I often tell people that like English is a really good idea. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't shock me either.
Yeah.
That's amazing. After working as a staff nurse, you decided to do travel nursing. Tell me about that change.
So that change came during COVID because I was in Houston at the time. And to be honest, I did not have a great experience in Houston because a lot of the things that you can do, going to museums, a lot of indoor activities, there's not too much that you can do, especially during the summers outside. And I really wanted to move to another state and experience a state other than Texas. So I moved to North Carolina to work at the university, or Duke University rather, the hospital associated with it. I really loved North Carolina. I didn't love working at that hospital. And I just think, again, it was the trenches of COVID. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted, where I wanted to work. I've told myself, you know what, I can't keep hopping hospitals, committing to them and then hopping from them. So naturally, travel nursing was like, well, I'm made for you. So I committed to that, and it gave me the opportunity to basically try out all the hospitals I wanted to. Generally the contracts are around 3 months. And so I jumped into it about a year after working at Duke.
So skipping to today, what motivated you to transition from nursing to digital marketing? Were there any specific experiences or moments? And obviously, I think what the audience will say, like, oh my gosh, Sarah, like you went through all the training and the education and everything, and suddenly you're like, okay, this is not for me anymore, and I want to move on to something else. So yeah, tell us, how did that transpire?
Well, I first want to say I still really do love nursing. I love working in the NICU. I wouldn't say it was necessarily a burnout from the actual career itself. A huge reason I made the shift is the work-life balance. And I know that sounds crazy because you only work 3 days as a nurse and get 4 off, but I will say that does get old because it doesn't really align with society's schedule, I'd say, especially now that I'm older and I've been able to really take advantage of that schedule, especially when I travel nursed. But the schedule didn't align with a lot of my friends, my family at the end of the day. And then I got married, and that realization that sometimes we'd be on opposite schedules really helped push me in the direction of a change as well. And I love having a daily schedule, knowing I can go to the grocery store or the gym after work, having time to cook dinner. Those are all really big things to me. And it helped that I had gotten some exposure to digital marketing through my sister. And she is very passionate about it. So therefore it looked really appealing to me. And like I said, like I love the analyzing side of nursing, and I've always really liked numbers. So I knew I could get into the strategy of it. And I liked the little bit of work I had done, which we can get into later, but I had heard amazing things about the environment of the company and I wanted in. So I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to be a part of Optidge specifically, but I think it really helped knowing how amazing the company was and treated their employees that made the jump a little bit easier and more appealing.
So you kind of had a little bit of a cheat code because you had this amazing schedule for some, right? Not for everyone, but you had free time. And therefore, at Optidge, we were looking for a writer or someone to help us with, some digital marketing tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And, Rachel's like, hey, why not my sister? She's got extra time and she'd love to do it. So you did that. And then obviously later on, you also had an internship at Optidge. So having that schedule allowed you to kind of do things at once.
Yes.
I wonder, like for our audience, for people who might not have that schedule, is it good to try to be able to do like both at one time? Because maybe to like let go of what you're doing completely and try the next thing might be too difficult. Can you talk to that a bit?
I would say if you're considering a career change specifically to digital marketing and you're already in another full-time position, that is definitely very tough, but I think it's doable. And I wouldn't necessarily completely jump ship from your current career because I think it's really important to test something out before you fully commit to it. So I was really lucky with Optidge because, like you said, I had been able to do a little bit of tasks with you guys before, especially during COVID. And I liked the tasks that I did, no matter how small, no matter how big. And if I hadn't had the time to fully jump into it like I did, I think I still would have, outside of a full-time job, whether it's on the weekends, I think it's really important to do your research, whether it's, starting an online class on the side that you can do a little bit at a time when you have that free time. I think that's really important to do because you don't want to jump into something before you know that you can commit to it with your, your mind, body, and soul, right? That was big for me as like a nurse coming out of college and realizing, hey, I'm not really sure what I want to do, where I want to work, and I don't want to keep making these commitments without knowing full well that I'm going to stay in them. So I think that is something you really need to consider before jumping ship completely.
So can you describe any challenges that you have faced during your transition and how you overcame them?
Yeah, I'd say my biggest challenge I've had, and this one has been really surprising to me, but when I moved out of nursing, I was excited for the relief from the type of stress I was experiencing at work. As a nurse, when you're new, you're probably stressed going into work for the first year or so. You're working some longer, some shorter. It depends on the specialty too. But I'd say it never fully goes away and it kind of just gets dulled. I think that's why some people, including myself at times, get burnout because you feel that intensity of stress start to go away, or at least you think it is, but really it's just dulled. And because it's not as severe as you felt it at first, you think it's gone. But one bad day can make you realize, man, it's never gone away. And I think that's fair and normal because you're dealing with people's lives. You should feel a level of stress. So making the decision to change careers, I was looking forward to not having that type of stress you feel when trying to, keep someone alive or healthy. And what I found is it's a whole different kind of stress now. Granted, I'm back in my new phase, so I know I'm feeling the stress to a higher degree, but I worry still. It's just different. I stress about doing my best. I stress about my clients and their accounts because I care. I really do care about them. I don't want to waste their money. I want to do the absolute best that I can. I want them to succeed. It's their business, their livelihood, their family. It's more than just making money. So it matters. And so I carry that stress and it's definitely gotten better, but I've had to sit back sometimes and be like, okay, Sarah, you're not trying to keep someone alive. It's important, yes, but you don't have to feel this level of stress. And I think you can still have drive without being stressed, if that makes sense.
So I think with certain individuals who are real go-getters, naturally they're going to want to do their best. So there is that level of stress that's always going to be there. And the key is like, how can we balance it? And maybe, I'm obviously not telling you like how to think or what to, to do, but naturally, if you found it in one place and in another place, I imagine if you would go to a third place, you still would want to do your best. And therefore that would always exist. So I think the good news is, and obviously it's different, right? It's different stresses in different locations, but knowing that there is this part of you that you have to like deal with, the trick is how to manage it.
Yeah.
And still be motivated to help people, but also realize that there is a certain amount that's out of our control. And therefore, like, I got to let go a little bit as well.
Yeah. And just the fact that if you're doing your best, then that's all that matters, right? You're putting your full potential somewhere. And then good things will come from that too.
So on a positive note, how has your understanding of patient care helped you in understanding customer needs and behavior in digital marketing?
As a nurse, I sometimes feel like a professional people reader, if you will.
Yeah.
I pride myself in being able to read people and how they're feeling. And if I can't, I'm comfortable asking. So yeah, it's taught me to validate people's feelings and situations. It's taught me to be non-judgmental to the way people choose to live their life or the decisions they make. And it's taught me to look at all people in a way that's more than just a patient, or in this situation, a client. People typically don't get upset for just any reason. It might be something you can't relate to, but there's always something you can do to help or at least validate how they're feeling. And I think that goes a long way in professional relationships too. I hope that all of my clients see that I care for their business, and that they feel like they're my only client, even though, I have multiple. And I'll always try to make them feel important to me because they are, and their well-being, matters. But the interpersonal skills, and let me immediately tell you, this is something I'm definitely not perfect at, but I do consider it a stronger suit. And I've taken care of a lot of people in a lot of different places, and you meet many different personalities. I've had some good experiences. I've had bad experiences. I've had patients, their families yell at me, but both have shaped me to be able to communicate and have discussions with just about anyone. And every now and then I still get a challenge. And I'm not going to say that I'm always at the top of my game here, but it's definitely helped support me move into a role where I speak with clients.
So outside of what you've already covered, any other advice you'd give to others considering a career shift, especially those coming from a non-traditional background?
I think you can always make a career shift. So I say go for it. My advice is that if you do go for it, make sure you find an environment that's nurturing and fosters growth. Find a company that really cares about their employees and their work-life balance. A career shift will never feel good if they don't respect what goes on in your life too, even if it's a field you love, you know? I think that's why nursing can burn people out because a lot of hospitals don't really give two hoots about your life outside of work and the fact that you're a whole other person than what you just do for work. So I think that's important. And then just taking your time to do the research, you know, talk to the people in the field, take a course on the subject you're interested in. Before committing to Optidge, I actually took the beginnings of an online coding class, and I quickly realized that was not going to be for me. But it helped confirm that digital marketing was closer to what I liked. So that's probably what I would say.
Although we won't tell everyone that in your job yourself, you're doing a little bit of coding here and there, and you're doing a great job at it. So
Yes,
you're good anyhow.
it's been a learning curve, but yes.
Are you looking for a career path that is flexible, satisfying, and well-paying? Do you have a knack for psychology? You're good with words, and you're fearless when it comes to tech. Digital marketing sounds cool. That's because it is. And guess what? You can learn to build a digital marketing career without studying for 4 years, compromising on your values, or working for peanuts. Odeo Academy is the professional and comprehensive way for uber smart, creative people to move into the fun, fulfilling, and lucrative industry of digital marketing without going to college, drowning in debt, or leaving your home. Check out odeoacademy.com/podcast and be sure to use the code MENTOR at checkout to claim $250 off. But hurry, Odeo's Digital Fundamentals career courses start May 11th at odeoacademy.com. That's ODEO academy.com/podcast and enter the code MENTOR at checkout to receive $250 off today. All right, Sarah, so who have been some of your most influential colleagues who have mentored you?
Rachel, my sister, was a huge beginning influencer. And Rachel worked at Optidge before I did. And she's been with you guys, for 7, 8 years? I can't quite remember, but I've been hearing her strategize for years. But the more I got involved, the more it started to make sense. Kind of like learning a new language. It seems so foreign at first, but it's really fun when you realize that you're starting to understand it and becoming fluent in certain areas. I got the unfiltered thoughts of Rachel, and the trust was obviously there from the start because she's my sister. So it was really easy to be able to ask kind of like the dumb questions, if you will, because she's my sister. You know, she might, growing up, she already thought that I was the dumb little sister. No, just kidding. But in all honesty, it does take the pressure off because I knew she wouldn't judge my questions. So that was really helpful. And then my second mentor has been Brianna, for sure. She's the head of paid search for Optidge currently. She made me feel the same way Rachel did, and I found that I could ask her as many questions as I needed without judgment or annoyance. I was really worried to lose Rachel when she went on maternity leave. But even before she left, I found great leadership from Brianna and found myself just as gravitated to her as I was Rachel. Their minds were both so interesting to listen to. And the best part was when, they had completely opposite perspectives sometimes in how to look at something. In areas like an SQR, for example, I use 2 different ways to analyze, and it's worked really great. But yeah, I could go on about how great they both are, but they've been the most influential for sure.
Yeah, for those who don't know what a SQR is, that's a search query report, and that's a report that you pull in a Google Ads campaign or Microsoft Ads that shows what are the actual terms that people typed in, and some of those are going to make sense for your campaigns and others are not. And therefore, by analyzing that report, you can make changes to optimize so that you get better performance. You know what I find amazing, Sarah, is often like when someone's found something that they really like, it's kind of like it's mine, and it's sometimes hard to share. I know with my siblings, I find it remarkable that Rachel, Optidge and digital marketing was kind of her thing, but she opened up a space to be like, hey, no, I want you to come in also. I want you to feel what I'm feeling, do what you do. I find that really special because I don't think that's a given all the time.
Yeah, I think it's been really fun, our relationship as sisters, because naturally in most sibling relationships when you're younger, I think that's true. You want, especially the older sibling, I'm sure, and I can't speak to that because I'm the baby, but I'm sure it's nice having your own thing. And I do feel like I was always wanting to do what she did, right? She's the, cooler older sister that I want to be just like. But as we've gotten older, both of us have realized that it's really nice to be able to relate to each other. And so I think when I started getting involved in Optidge it was really quite fun being able to have discussions with each other. And still now, I can bring up issues to her and we'll talk for like an hour about it, right? And it's been so awesome just to have that type of conversation with her because growing up, I did band when she did band. I did color guard when she did color guard. I went to the same college as her. She was briefly interested in nursing and then I was interested in nursing. It's always just kind of been aligned with each other. But yeah, she's always been just so open to sharing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about all the different marketers that I know, like do they have like a sister or sibling? A lot of them don't. So I feel like it's a really unique situation, a really special.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about, you've got these two mentors in your professional life currently. How has that translated in you becoming a mentor to others? I know you're still like at the coordinator position, but you have had the opportunity to teach others and show. That's a big part of Optidge, right? We're always we're learning, but we're always giving as well and teaching. So tell me a little bit about your mentorship style currently.
I wouldn't say that I mentor a specific person, but it's been really fun taking on the responsibility of reviewing things for other people who are starting to train in paid search. And I think it's a very needed challenge to be able to teach or mentor someone else because it challenges the current knowledge that you have about it. So for an SQR, for example, I will be reviewing someone's work in it and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I need to be able to explain this strategy to them or this mindset. So it's been super helpful for me because it forces me to talk about or explain topics that you think you know, but you've never really had to describe. And then I would say it's kind of moving into my clients as well. For example, with one of my clients, the point of contacts didn't know too much about PPC and he asked a lot of questions. And it's been really fun to walk them through things and be challenged by their questions because it gives me a better understanding of what I do and don't know. It brings a certain humility, right? So mentorship kind of shines a light on you and exposes any holes that you might have. But those are just areas you can use for improvement, right? No one knows everything. And just because you may be a mentor doesn't mean you can't keep learning or change your mindset on something. And it's been cool because like with Rachel and Brianna, they both have passion, right? You have to be able to like what you're talking about and be excited about sharing it with someone else. And then there's a certain amount of candor, I would say. I love how unfiltered and real Brianna and Rachel are with me. It builds that trust. It creates a really open environment for discussion. And so I want to use that in all those different methods or keys, if you will. And I want to apply them to my clients too, because I think mentoring your clients is huge and being on the same team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I'm so excited that you align with my sort of vision about the best way to learn is by teaching, right? To me, that's like the biggest thing ever. And that's so cool that you see the value in that. And not just, you have to do it sometimes, but you're actually embracing that. And it's like, ooh, that's how I really understand what I'm talking about.
Yes, for sure. Or, someone will ask me a question. I'm like, I don't know the answer to that. Let me go look it up. Let me go ask my colleagues, people who know better than I do and get back to you. It's just, it really helps me learn, truly.
Let's now move into getting started in PPC for beginners. Because although you're not a beginner, but you were there, recently. So let's talk about it. So you talked about transferable skills. Are there any foundational knowledge or skills that a beginner should have before diving into the world of Google Ads or PPC?
Yeah. So I kind of have two answers to this. The skill of asking questions is so important. You need to be comfortable asking people for help and for insight. That was the main skill I had coming in. And it's also been the most useful, I'd say. I would also say that I think it's helpful to become familiar with the digital marketing ecosystem as well. And you can do this really before diving in. You'll obviously know it much better once you're in it, but it helped knowing, how SEO, social media, and Google all work together in supporting the marketing of a business before, I really got into it. So those are my two pieces of advice, I'd say.
It is so true. And why is it true? Is because when we don't see people asking questions, we're actually worried that there's something wrong. And we've actually said, people, you're not the right fit because you don't ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And like to add it on top, I'm not sure if you knew this story, Sarah, but the whole reason that I hired your sister in the first place was because she used to come after class. She was my student at U of H, and she'd come after class and ask me questions. And because of that, she actually elevated herself in front of everyone else. And I was like, oh, she's got it. So it's cool that theme, right? It's kind of like it's in the Strickland DNA, but it's in the theme. It's really, that's how you can become a good digital marketer and good at PPC.
And I definitely got that ingrained in me from nursing as well. Like, you can definitely get comfortable in nursing, but you're never and should not be in a spot where you're like, okay, I know everything. I don't have to worry or care about messing up. I don't need to learn anymore. No, because if that is your mindset, chances are you're actually not that good of a nurse. And the most amazing nurses I've met have been the most humble people you'll ever meet. And, they're always open to learning. They love to teach, new nurses, patients, families, whatever it is. They're confident, but they're not overly confident. And they ask why, which is huge. During rounds, they ask the doctors questions. Why are we doing this? Hey, I don't understand the reasoning behind an order. Can you explain it to me? Why are we giving them this medicine? So yeah, that behavior has been instilled in me and has really prepped me well to move into a career where essentially I knew close to nothing and had to be okay going from a career where I had that confidence and years of knowledge and experience to a place of having to start over. And yeah, as you said, I feel like it's just been ingrained in our family also to ask a lot of questions. So
I wonder thinking back at college or high school or even like grade school, elementary school, were you the type of person who would ask questions and raise your hand?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes me laugh hearing the story about Rachel in office hours, because I actually remember my first year at UT, I took an astronomy class. It was just a required extracurricular class you had to take. And it was a hard, stinking class. I don't know what it was, but it was so difficult because our professor, he was like this huge astronomer, studied black holes, was just really nerdy and would get into it. And I was so lost. So I think I spent hours with that man outside of class in his office hours asking questions. So I'm kind of upset that he didn't offer me a job in astronomy like he did with Rachel, but that just cracks me up because I can relate deeply to it.
That's awesome. So what are some common misconceptions about PPC that beginners should be aware of?
The biggest one is that the small things don't matter, because they do. They matter so much. And being a beginner and going slower is not bad. And I've had to tell myself this over the last, couple months, because, when you go slow, I almost would feel bad that I'm going slower through certain tasks or whatever. But, I've ended up catching small mistakes before because I was moving slowly and going through the details and asking questions. And sometimes it's really good to have green eyes in the account to ask questions of why something is set up a certain way, because, you never know what you're going to find. So I would say that's the first thing. And then another one that I get from, my friends who don't necessarily know anything about digital marketing is that it can be done entirely by AI or automation. No, there has to be a strategist to have their hands in it. And in fact, if you let automation take a lead, you'll miss out on great opportunity within the account. You can have the greatest AI machine, Google, but it has to have a strategist to help mold and direct the account to, best optimize performance.
So talk about optimization and analysis. Any tips or tricks specifically when a beginner is starting to analyze performance of an account? Any things that you found useful?
Yeah, I would say, again, no detail is too small. And then setting up reminders and cadences for yourself. To-do lists are very important, especially as I learned how to prioritize. So making sure nothing gets lost in the sauce, essentially, everything needs to be accounted for. There's so many things that you have to optimize on a schedule, right? And then try to go through whatever you're analyzing yourself first, and then have someone review it and input their own suggestions. Ask questions about how they got there. A lot of whys and how questions. Those are the best. But I would say if it's their first time doing something, just push yourself to go through it, even if it's really, really uncomfortable and it's going to be bumpy and you're probably going to miss a lot of things. But I think that first attempt at by yourself is really important. And then having someone go in and almost being like, okay, this is what I found in it. And then you can look at what they find and ask questions. Well, how'd you get there? Or maybe I was closer to getting there than I thought. And it kind of gives you some more confidence going through it, you know?
So I think that brings up two interesting points. Number one, on your last point, it helps to have someone that you can ask questions to and to review your work, right? Being in a situation where you don't have someone there, you could still run the campaigns and do what you need to, but I guess that learning curve, it's going to take a lot longer.
Yes.
So that's an interesting point. The second one is something that I remembered is like when you first start out, you usually get like 1 or 2 accounts, right? So at that point, it's really easy to remember what you're doing and what you're at. But naturally, as you're getting better and you get more on your plate, having those reminders can be really important because it's difficult if you're working on 5, 10, some agencies, by the way, put 70 accounts on one person. We don't do that at Optidge. But right, when you're working on a lot of accounts, yeah, you need to have those reminders and those checklists and to-do lists. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, I have like 10 checklists. I don't recommend that for everyone, but I have so many that I don't even know. There's no way I could forget because they're all plastered around me all the time.
Yeah, you'll have to take a picture of your wall, and then we could include it in the episode.
Will.
Last question on this topic. Obviously Google's changing all the time. Google Ads is changing all the time. How do you personally keep track of the changes and just being on top of what's happening in the world of Google Ads?
I feel like I really lean on my colleagues for this. I mean, I have recently gotten a LinkedIn because I really didn't need one before with nursing. And LinkedIn is amazing. I don't know if you guys know this. I'm so late to the game, but man, I have seen some really cool posts from people or just, my colleagues sending stuff into our Slack threads. Like, hey, did you guys see this article that was posted? Google's doing this in a couple of months. I mean, that's been really, really cool. But that's kind of how I do it is it's LinkedIn. It's through my colleagues, just being open to reading articles. That's kind of where you have to continue to be able to learn in the field plays in, right?
Yeah. And honestly, it's interesting. I was just talking to my executive assistant about like my email inbox and things like that. And I'm not reading, like I've signed up to a couple of newsletters. I don't read them anymore. You know why? Because LinkedIn is so great. Like the bottom line is, people are on there, they're talking, just being on there, you kind of know what's going on. So I'm so glad that you created a LinkedIn account. And yeah, I'm happy to share people that I think you should follow now that I know you're there and want to look. But there's definitely some key Google Ads, PPC players on there that I follow and I learn a lot from.
Yes, definitely. That would be great because I mean, even now I kind of like, I'll look at your LinkedIn, I'll look at Optidge's and kind of see like what posts are trending related to it. And that's been working, but yeah, I would love to follow more.
Cool. So before we wrap up, I'd love to do like a quick top 3. So for people who don't know, you're a musician. So I'd love to talk about your love of music, love of playing an instrument. What's special about it for you?
Again, with Rachel, she did band in middle school. And so that was my first exposure to it. My grandfather was always really musical, but I would argue that he is the only musical person in our family. And so when Rachel did band, I was like, wow, this is so cool. And I remember being in elementary school. And I don't know if it was like for PE or whatever it was in assembly, they brought a trumpet player in and he could play the trumpet. He could play a song without pressing the valves. And I thought that was so cool. I can still picture it. And so when I went to middle school, I knew that I wanted to do band and I was just praying that I could play trumpet. And I remember walking into the band hall and the band director took one look at me and he said, you have the embouchure for a trumpet player. And I just feel like the universe was like, Sarah, this is it. So that's kind of how it started. And I played trumpet for, I think it's 12 years that I've played. And I don't play regularly now, but I could still pick it up for sure. And it's kind of led into, now, especially during COVID, I was like, I kind of want to learn another one. And so that's why I picked up the mandolin and I've started teaching myself that. But it's been difficult because a string instrument is very different from, a brass or wind instrument. So it's been a fun challenge, but it's very stress relieving for me. So if I've had a stressful day, I'll just pick it up and kind of tinker on it. And it's just so fun and it brings me such joy.
I love my guitar and I feel the same way. So that's so cool you're learning mandolin. I'm going to have to send you some bands that I think's that have some pretty
Oh,
cool
love it.
mandolin
I'm
music.
very into bluegrass with the mandolin, so anything related to that or not, I mean, bring it on. I know that there's like some good Spanish music with it too, so.
And then, so finally, with travel, like you've been a travel nurse. So I'd love to hear your best place that you lived or visited, and maybe the one that's, the worst place.
Yeah. So my most favorite place in the whole world is Denver, Colorado. It was,
Mm.
and honestly, it was the location, yes, but I found family there. Like I had the best friendships in Denver, and really liked the hospital too. So it was all around just great. I would say the worst, and you're gonna laugh at this because I'm currently here, has been Seattle because I hate the rain. The location is really awesome and it's beautiful when it's not raining. But yeah, I would say Seattle has been my least favorite. And I've been to Florida, all around North Carolina. So yeah, I definitely like the West Coast, but the East Coast has a special place in my heart as well.
My only joke about Seattle is, so both my wife and I, our families live in Houston.
Mhm.
So whenever there's like some like family trouble, I'm like, honey, like let's just get up and we'll move to Seattle because it's like the furthest place away from Houston as possible. So
Yeah, I know. It's just so far. And Pacific time, I don't know what it is, but it feels just eons behind everyone else.
So Sarah, where can people find you?
I am now on LinkedIn, so you can find me there under my married name. And then I do have an Instagram and a Facebook. So, but I am not on, what is it, X now? I'm
Yes.
not on X. And I've never been on X. And I don't plan on being on X.
That's fine. I think LinkedIn and Instagram are good places to be.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, Sarah, this has really been lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective, your journey. I'm sure it's going to help so many people see that the impossible is possible. And this has been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was so fun. My first podcast.
Pleasure. Yes, and hopefully many more.
Yes.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning into the Digital Marketing Mentor. We'll speak with you next time. Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Mentor podcast. Be sure to check us out online at thedmmentor.com and at thedmmentor on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more marketing mentor magic. See you next time.